UFC 303 International Fight Week, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka 2 is all done and dusted, and in this video I'm going to be giving my best matchups to make for all the top fighters on the card that you can now see on the screen. Kicking it off with Payton Talbott. Man, amazing performance from Payton Talbott. He is without a doubt turning into one of the biggest prospects in the UFC at the moment, and you know, you've got Joe Rogan talking about him, Sean O'Malley talking about him, you've got a lot of people talking about him at the moment. So he made his call out. He wants Adrian Yanez, and with that performance, give him Adrian Yanez. I mean, without a doubt, he needs to be put, like, I think they've got a money fighter on their hands in the UFC with Payton Talbott. He just brings kind of a different aura to the UFC. So I think it's definitely a good idea to get him cracking into that top 20 where Adrian Yanez is. And Adrian Yanez isn't, you know, someone to just pass by. He is good. He's got very good striking, good boxing. He's got the striking accuracy. He's got the speed. He's got the experience there as well over Payton Talbott, and it's definitely a challenge for Payton Talbott. I don't think he's going to be knocking him out in 19 seconds, but yeah, it's just definitely, I think it's a very suitable challenge for Payton Talbott to get up there. And he's not a fighter that is really known for his grappling, so there's not any real, I don't think there's any real scare there for Payton Talbott in terms of him getting submitted. So I think this would just make for an excellent technical fight on the feet, and see that power versus speed and experience in this matchup. And when we look at Yanez as well, for him when it comes to this fight, you know, whenever someone beats a hype train, it always pushes them back up, whether they're on a losing streak or not, or they're just going up naturally. It always pushes them up very high. I mean, you look at Ilya versus Bryce Mitchell, when Bryce Mitchell was one of the biggest fighters in the UFC. He had a lot of momentum, and you can look back at, well, you can look at Bilal Muhammad against an undefeated Sean Brady as well, and then you look back and we can look at, you know, Kelvin Gastelum when he was coming through tough and he beat Uriah Hall, and at that time Uriah Hall was the scariest fighter coming out of tough, and especially Chael Sonnen thought he was going to be a champion, which he didn't, surprisingly, coming off that tough season. So yeah, I mean, basically what I'm saying is, if you get the chance to beat one of these big up and comers that are, you know, that everyone is talking about, then it's only going to be doing good things for you. So yeah, definitely a challenge for Talbot, challenge for Adrian Yanez as well, and it's going to be good to see with this fight if Adrian Yanez can definitely keep it there and see if he can actually stay and push towards again the top 15. So yeah, I think you put this on UFC 307 and put it higher up on the prelims than Talbot was originally in UFC 303. Now moving up, Andre Fili. I think you give him Billy Q. I think giving him Billy Quarantillo at this point, I think it'd be good. I feel like if Fili had a bit more of a decisive fight against Cub Swanson, then I'd probably look more towards a top 15 eliminator fight for him. But I think if he fights Billy Q, then he gets a top 15 eliminator fight if he beats him, and then he goes into the top 15 if he can do that. And I think this is a very good matchup. I mean, both of these guys, they're both veterans. They've both been in there for 5+ years just in the UFC, and, you know, a lot longer beforehand too. And the winner of this, you know, will get that top 15 eliminator fight, and then the other one will get pushed back down, and then they will, you know, they'll be kind of one of those guys that stays as one of those gatekeepers outside the rankings to see if someone can push forward to the rankings. I think that's the best position for them. So they're the fighter that'll be at the crossroads to see if the up and coming contenders can actually pass them. And if that's the test, if they can't pass, you know, a Billy Q, an Andre Fili, a Cub Swanson, they can't pass any of those guys, then they're not going to get into the top 15. So yeah, I think this is just I think it's just a good fight in terms of the landscape of the featherweight division to have that there. And I mean, just to see if both of these guys have still got it as well. So I think with the matchup specifically as well, I think it'll just give a very well-rounded MMA game. I think that they both just have, they're both very well versed in all areas of MMA. So it'll just make for a very good fight just in all avenues of it, when, like, if they do fight. So I think this is a good, like, kind of crossroads matchups to make. So I feel like this would be good, and put this on a fight night in late September. Now moving on to Joe Pyfer. Called out Paul Craig, called him out saying he does not like him, and says he doesn't like his face. So with that, I just think you give him Paul Craig. I think that for Pyfer, I think this would be if he can get this done, if he can get this across the line, fair play, because I think he would bulldoze Paul Craig. I think, especially at this point in time and the way Paul Craig's looked, he's just so chinny now. He's not the aggressor, and if you're not the aggressor against Joe Pyfer, you're getting your head decapitated. So yeah, I think it's just a nightmare matchup for Paul Craig. But I mean, you know, there's a possibility that Paul Craig could just, you know, whip a miracle triangle out of his ass in the last minute of the fight, like he did against a much better opponent in Magomed Ankalaev. So you never know. I mean, it is MMA at the end of the day, but I don't like Paul Craig's chances there. But if he can get it done, then he shows he's still got it, and he gets to derail a hype train, similar to Adrian Yanez with Payton Talbott. If he can do that against Joe Pyfer, then he's pushing himself right back up, and will probably get that top 15 eliminator fight, or, you know, just push forwards through the top 15 anyway. So yeah, I think this is a good fight for Pyfer to take, and if he can get it done, he's going into the top 15 without a doubt. The UFC love him, and he is entertaining as well, as long as he's not on the back foot. Then yeah, he is entertaining. But yeah, I think with this, if it gets across the line, put it on a fight night in mid to late October. Now moving to MVP, Michael Venom Page. The fight that I got for this, which I'm sure most people could probably predict, and most people would want, without a doubt. I think Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, this would just be one of the most highly anticipated fights that we could honestly get in MMA today. And I'm honestly praying that this can happen. I don't know if it will. Like, it is scary because I do love both of these guys, and it's really hard not to like either of them, especially Wonder Boy, obviously. You know, he's got the nicest motherfucker belt for a reason. And, you know, I feel like with these guys, like, I don't want to see either of them get chinned, but the striking pedigree of both of these guys and their clash of styles with, you know, when you look at Wonder Boy, his striking style, that karate base, that very traditional karate base, against someone like Michael Venom Page that has that unorthodox precision, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if someone does get chinned, especially in a 5-round fight. And when you look at these guys, honestly, like, it would be hard to watch, but it would just be so insanely worth it to watch it. I mean, I feel like there's just no reason as to why people would not love to see this fight. And I think I'm putting it in the matchups to make, but I do think it could be a little bit far-fetched because they are very good friends, and I just would not be surprised, and they have trained together multiple times, so I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen. But I mean, if it's a fight for the fans, hopefully they think in that direction and they can make it happen. I think if I wasn't looking at this for MVP, I'd probably be looking at someone like Joaquin Buckley instead, which would still be a good fight. Joaquin Buckley is obviously, you know, a muscled up freaking bulldozer, so I think that would be a good fight as well, but nowhere near in comparison to if he gets the Wonder Boy fight. So I'm just putting this in here just to, you know, just preach to MMA gods that we can somehow get this fight, because it would just be fantastic. So if we do get it, make this for a fight night headliner or somewhere like deep into a main card. And I think if we're looking at I'd probably say more so the fight night headliner, make these guys the spotlight without a doubt, and put it in late September or early October or whenever the fuck, I don't care, just please make it happen. Now, Ian Garry. Look, with Ian beating MVP, regardless of the performance, he does need to be fighting up in the rankings after beating MVP, who was about 7 ranks behind him, 6-7 ranks behind him. Regardless of who MVP is, that's just the way, you know, that's just the way it works. And I think that Ian Garry, he does deserve up. He needs to be pushing up. And, you know, with his ground game, he did look good with the ground game, but I wouldn't say he looked insane with the ground game. He didn't look like I train with Charles Oliveira all the bloody time good. And with that, far-fetched, especially at this point with the last couple of months and the shit that's gone on, I think Colby Covington should seriously take this fight, because if he derails Ian Garry, he is right back on track, and he'll get that love back from the fans, back from his lackluster Leon Edwards performance at UFC 296. So I think and especially, which this is even more far-fetched than the matchup itself, but if he could finish Garry, especially with those pillow hands, if he could finish Garry, then it would just throw Colby straight back on the positive. He would be looking top one, possibly, champ fight eventually again, if he's beating someone like Ian Garry and finishing him as well. He's got a lot of bragging rights then, and Colby has got the gift of the gab, so he can weasel his way into any situation that's good for him, and especially he will do so if he knocks Ian Garry out or submits him, which I think would be doubtful. But yeah, I think, when you look at these guys, the trash talk is probably bigger than the fight itself. The trash talk would just be off the charts, and it would be so entertaining for all the fans. And we know Ian Garry wants it. Just depends on Colby if he can have it. And I think after watching that fight against MVP, I think there's things that he can exercise in his game in that matchup. So I feel like, if anything, from UFC 303 onwards, Colby Covington is more likely to fight Ian Garry. Not saying it's guaranteed by any way, shape or form, but he's more inclined to fight Ian Garry after UFC 303 than he was before UFC 303 with that performance that Ian Garry had. And I understand that Shavkat and Ian Garry have been going back and forth, but I do think that JDM and Shavkat should still have that fight on for that title eliminator fight. I think that just needs to be made, and I think that's just more likely a fight anyway. And, they've both, Shavkat has responded to both Ian Garry and JDM, so there's not really one over the other, but I'd say in terms of timelines, it just matches up much better for Shavkat and JDM anyway. And yeah, honestly, I just feel like it's hard to say where we would even put this, because I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Colby just takes another year off. So let's shoot for UFC 309 as the co-main event at the end of the year. I think that would be a banger for the end of the year. And and that's just with Colby Covington as well. UFC 296 was at the end of the year. He had a shit performance. Now, if he can fight at the end of the year again and have a good performance, then he redeems himself. Now, moving on from that, Roman Dolidze. So this one was definitely tricky. I mean, I did say it a bit more in the recap of UFC 303. If you haven't checked that out already, it's just my last video. I'll leave it in the description below. But yeah, this is going to be controversial because Roman is technically a middleweight, but honestly, looking at how he performed at light heavyweight against Anthony Smith, especially with how he carries his speed over from middleweight to light heavyweight, he did look pretty fast in comparison, and obviously to Anthony Smith, but I think it just works for him better at light heavyweight, to be honest. He just looks healthier. He looks fresher, and the speed isn't a huge issue against, someone with hands like Nastadina Marvov in his last fight where he got pieced up. So I think it's the best move for him. And if he does do it, he's going to be slotting in around the 10th or 11th rank because of beating Anthony Smith as well. So I honestly do think that not only that, in terms of just a speed translation, I think that Roman Dolidze moving up to light heavyweight, that wrestling is a big asset there as well, because when you look at the light heavyweight landscape, there just isn't a lot of wrestlers in there besides Magomed Ankalaev and, in part, Nikita Krylov, who I think he should be fighting next. I think he should fight Nikita Krylov, because Krylov, he's got a heavy submission game, and he's obviously got the KO threat. I believe he's 12-1 with KOs. And Dolidze has never been finished. So it gives us that questionable test there between the two of them. Can a guy like Nikita Krylov, who's a finishing machine, finish someone like Roman Dolidze? And, it's just going to, I feel like it would be a good comeback fight for Nikita Krylov, because he's been out, obviously he's coming off a win, but he's been out for over a year and a half at this point. So I feel like it's just a win-win for both in terms of Krylov having a fight that's not too insane to bounce back for, having the year and a half off, and then Roman Dolidze, if he can beat Nikita Krylov, he will make a push for the top 5. So I feel like it's a bit of a no-brainer there. It's a weird one, but I feel like that would probably be the best way to go if I'm Roman Dolidze. So I think you make this for a main card slot on a fight night in October. Now, Dan Ige, with Ige stepping in on 4 hours notice like an absolute champion that he is, he needs to be rewarded, and he wants to fight at the Sphere, so give him the Sphere, you know, and Dana White's pretty much already confirmed it, so hopefully he's true to his word and Dan Ige gets to fight at UFC 306. And I don't think there would be someone better for him to fight on that card than Yair Rodriguez, because obviously Yair's Mexican, so we've already got that 306 slot there to boost that for the Mexican independence. So it would be feel like it would just match up perfectly. Yair's had a bit of time off now from Brian Ortega. Dan Ige didn't really take any damage from Lopes, so I don't think it's far-fetched. And as we know now, Dan Ige is completely game. He will fight Yair Rodriguez on 2 hours notice or something like that, probably, especially if he's fighting up the division. Fighting Diego Lopes on 4 hours notice down the division is, it's a lot of respect there. And when you look at this matchup, Yair, he needs a bounce back fight, because he's on 2 losses now, and if he can finish Dan Ige, the unfinishable guy, then it puts him straight back on track to try and reach that title again. And after that Lopes fight, it gives Ige, a fight up in the rankings, which he does deserve. And, it's good to see how he fares against someone as versatile on the feet as Yair compared to his past opponents. So I think this would be a very fun fight. The durability versus the versatility. Yeah, make this for UFC 306 at the Sphere. Now, Diego Lopes, after Lopes, just like Dan Ige, absolute champion. After he helped save that co-main event and going through 3 different weight classes from 145, 155, and obviously the catch weight 165, put him on the Sphere as well. Dana promised that, put Diego Lopes on the Sphere. Honestly, I think they wanted Diego Lopes on the Sphere regardless anyway of the performance. He's obviously a huge draw, and he's got that, he's Mexican and Brazilian, so he's definitely he trains with Alexa Grasso. He's in that camp. He's her jiu-jitsu coach, I believe. And yeah, I just definitely think that Diego Lopes is just prime for that 306 card regardless. And when we look at Lopes, he does have options. He's definitely got options there. He's got Aljamain Sterling, which the grappling in that matchup would be fantastic. He's got the Evloev rematch as well, and that would be extremely fascinating to see how that goes down if they're fighting again, because Evloev almost had his arm ripped off, his leg ripped off, but he did a very good job of coming back. But Diego Lopes has got more experience now, and they've both had a feel of each other too. That sounds weird, but yeah, they've both fought each other, so they've got their reads from the jump. So it'll be fascinating to see if that matchup can happen. But I think we make this even more simple. And emphasizing the Mexican side of things at the Sphere, rebook the Brian Ortega fight. Because these guys, they have unfinished business. Obviously, there's no animosity between the two of them. Definitely not. They're both really nice guys, but they do have that unfinished business. And, going through the predictions, really analyzing this fight, there's just so many questions in this fight, and it's such a fascinating matchup. No matter what the weight class is, if it's on the ground, if it's on the feet, it's just extremely fascinating. And, Lopes has so much to gain from Ortega, because Ortega is still 3rd ranked, even though he's pulled out. I believe he's 3rd ranked. He might be 4th. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but regardless, it's still a fight so far up the rankings that he wants to take. And, Ortega, he needs to make a statement. And I think he needs to make a statement down the rankings. And if he can do it against Diego Lopes, who is a big name, then that's a no-brainer as well. Because, he needs to make that statement after he's just pulled out. So I think you put this on the main card of UFC 306 at the Sphere at 145 pounds and get it done. Now, Jiri Prochazka. man, he's going to have to take a bit of time. It was rough, definitely rough. He got wobbled, dropped, destroyed. Sad. It's sad. Jiri is he's such a good fighter, and he's just got such a good mentality. He doesn't make excuses. And with the guy that he's being matched up against that I'm putting in here, he is the exact opposite. So let's have Alex Pereira's children scrap. No brainer here. Jiri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Look, if Jiri wins, it just shows that he's definitely got it up there in that higher echelon of light heavyweights. And if he beats Jamal decisively, eventually he's going to have another crack at that title, whether it's Alex Pereira there or not, obviously with Alex Pereira's age. But, Jiri is a type of guy that would fight Alex Pereira 1,000 times, get knocked out 999 times just to find that one time. And, that's just that mentality there, and everyone loves him. Everyone wants to see him in title fights. He's just got such a good mentality, a very fun style. I think that this is a no-brainer that you put this on. These guys both haven't fought yet, and it's going to it will solidify Jiri to stay in that title contention. And then if Jamal wins, he's got the title shot. I would probably say he definitely realistically has that title shot there. And as annoying as it is, because he has the worst case of cope that I have ever seen. If you have seen any of his posts, all the shit he is talking about, it is ridiculous. He is losing fans by the day, and yeah, it's painful. And I'm going for Jiri. I would be going for Jiri in this fight, and this fight will happen. He needs to change. He needs to change that mentality. Otherwise, he's just going to get chinned and chinned and chinned. I'm so confident on that. But this fight, regardless of the emotions, everything like that, this fight needs to happen regardless, because both of them were former champions that were supposed to fight, and both of them, respect to both Jiri and Jamal Hill, they both vacated due to their injuries. And the winner of this fight will eventually fight Ankalaev at some point as well, and then that will be able to solidify between the three of them who is the second best fighter at light heavyweight, and can probably solidify, just like Robert Whittaker compared to Israel Adesanya, who can solidify that second spot for so long, and then they'll just keep bouncing on title shots. So yeah, I think that this is just a no-brainer, probably the easiest matchup to make on this card. Make this fight for UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. And that moves us to Alex Pereira. And I say Abu Dhabi, for Jiri and Hill, because I think you put them on the same card as Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, and just let that press conference fucking cook. Just the four of them on one press conference, shit will go off. People will be so entertained. People will love it. Just light heavyweight, just nuttiness everywhere. So I think that this would just be a good way to sort the timelines there. Now, I understand that Pereira obviously has options here. He's the face of the sport at this point, especially when it comes to the matchup, especially when it comes to Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall is probably the biggest name people want. Joe Rogan screaming in Dana White's ear to make this heavyweight fight happen. And all the crowd want it. Everyone wants Alex Pereira to have not necessarily just Tom Aspinall. They want him to have that triple champ opportunity. And with these performances he is having, he is deserving it 100%. And we look at him fighting Tom Aspinall for sure. He is not fighting John Jones, and I explain why in my heavyweight division is a complete mess video, which if you haven't seen already, I'll leave it in the description below. But if Pereira goes out there, goes to Abu Dhabi, takes out Ankalaev away from home, takes him out, KOs him, there is absolutely no argument for the light heavyweight division for Alex Pereira. There's nothing. There is nothing. Like, you cannot deny him to move up to heavyweight and fight for triple champ. if he chins Ankalaev, a guy that is on a 10-fight win streak, that has been ransacking everyone else except for Jan Blachowicz, you can't deny him. You cannot deny Alex Pereira for the triple champ status. You know, you can't deny him that opportunity, and that's what everyone wants to see. They want to see that more than the Ankalaev fight, but I think Pereira just gets this out of the way if he can. I mean, I think he chews Ankalaev's legs to fucking bits and probably chins him in the second or third round. Obviously, Ankalaev is good. He's got very good boxing, but after that Jan fight, I'm not confident in him. Jan chewed his legs to bits, and if Pereira is hitting Ankalaev's legs like Jiri was, done. His legs are gone, absolutely gone. So, yeah, I think Pereira just gets this out of the way, and then no argument, goes for that triple champ status. And I mean, you know, we look at Ankalaev, no slouch, 10-fight win streak, destroyed Johnny Walker, and he does deserve the title fight. I mean, realistically, he did deserve the fight. The fight at UFC 303 realistically more so than Jiri Prochazka did, just based on their careers and what's happened recently. Obviously, Ankalaev hasn't fought for the title since Jan Blachowicz, which was, you know, not a great performance. But then you look at Jiri Prochazka, and he fought Alex Pereira for the title, you know, sooner than that. So it did make more sense for Ankalaev, but obviously Yuri's more of a fan favorite, so that's completely fair there. But that's being said, Ankalaev does deserve the shot ultimately, and he is the biggest threat to Pereira in the division, especially after Jamal Hill got decapitated and Yuri's just been decapitated twice. So yeah, I think you make this either the main event of UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi, or you make it the co-main with Islam Makhachev versus Arman Sarukian as the main event. Obviously, that depends on Arman Sarukian and his suspension, and to see if that will actually work out. But yeah, I think regardless, if you just get these four guys on the UFC 308 card, Alex Pereira takes Ankalaev out in his home turf. He has just got the best argument there to try for that triple champ status. So yeah, I think that this is a no-brainer. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to hear more about Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall, John Jones, Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight division as a whole, check out my heavyweight division is an absolute mess video, which is just listed here on the screen. And yeah, if you've liked the video, please just chuck a like, comment, subscribe, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one.